Hello, everyone. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us today. We have a brand new story to share with you, so let's get started. The golden lights of the Whitmore estate sparkled against the darkened sky, casting an almost ethereal glow over the grand mansion where tomorrow's wedding would take place. Inside, laughter echoed through the halls, glasses clinked, and elegant guests whispered about what a perfect match Olivia Carter and Nathan Whitmore made. It was the kind of union that seemed destined, two powerful families merging, a love story straight out of a fairy tale. At least, that was what Olivia had always believed. She had spent the last 3 years by Nathan's side, standing proudly as he climbed the corporate ladder of Whitmore Enterprises, a company built on generations of wealth and power. She had been welcomed into his world with open arms. Margaret, his mother, had taken Olivia in as if she were her own daughter, and Charlotte, Nathan's younger sister, had become Olivia's closest confidant. Tomorrow, she would officially become a Whitmore, sealing her place in a family that had embraced her after the tragic loss of her own parents. Everything was perfect, or so it seemed. As Olivia stood in front of the ornate vanity in her bridal suite, she held a small velvet box in her hands, the heirloom cufflinks that had once belonged to Nathan's grandfather. Margaret had insisted that he wear them on their wedding day, a symbol of tradition and legacy. A soft smile touched Olivia's lips. Despite her nerves, she was ready. She was about to step into the next chapter of her life, a future built on love and security. But fate had other plans. Checking the time, she realized Nathan was still at his bachelor party, held at the Grand Hotel just a few blocks away. She decided to surprise him, to deliver the cufflinks personally. It was a small gesture, but one she hoped would make him smile. As she slipped on a coat and stepped into the waiting car, she had no idea that the next few minutes would change everything. The hotel lobby was familiar, a place she and Nathan had visited countless times for galas and charity events. The staff greeted her warmly, unaware of the storm about to unfold. A bellhop led her to the private lounge where Nathan and his closest friends were celebrating. As she approached, the heavy door was slightly ajar, and through the gap, she heard the unmistakable sound of Nathan's laughter. It was carefree, confident, the sound of a man who had everything under control. Then, the words that shattered her world. "Come on, man. You're not seriously settling down with Olivia, are you?" It was Liam, Nathan's best friend, his voice laced with amusement. Nathan's reply came with a chuckle. "Of course I am. She's perfect, on paper. The trust fund, the connections, the company her father left behind. It's all falling into place." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. "You make it sound like a business deal," Liam joked, and the group erupted into laughter. Nathan's next words twisted like a knife in Olivia's chest. "That's because it is. She's a temporary investment until someone better comes along. And once I take full control of Carter Industries, well, let's just say I won't be needing her anymore." The room exploded with cheers, backslaps, and toasts, but Olivia heard nothing else. The world around her blurred, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. The man she loved, the man she had trusted with her future, had never loved her at all. She should have stormed in. She should have confronted him, but instead, she turned and walked away, her hands trembling as she clutched the velvet box. The cufflinks inside suddenly felt like a cruel joke, a meaningless relic from a family built on deception. By the time she reached her car, Olivia's tears had dried, replaced by something far more powerful, determination. She had been a fool, but not anymore. Tomorrow, Nathan Whitmore would stand at the altar, expecting her to pledge her life to him. Instead, she would be the one delivering the final blow. The morning of the wedding dawned with a deceptive sense of peace. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Olivia's bridal suite, casting golden rays over the delicate lace of her wedding gown. It should have been the happiest day of her life. The makeup artists fluttered around her like butterflies, applying the finishing touches, while her bridesmaids sipped on champagne, laughing and reminiscing about the past. Olivia played her part well, smiling when expected, nodding in agreement, even letting out a soft chuckle at their light-hearted teasing. But beneath the veil of calm, her mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. She had spent the night after overhearing Nathan's betrayal not in tears, but in action. Gone was the naive woman who had once believed in fairy tales. In her place stood someone sharper, colder, someone who now understood that trust could be weaponized. She had spent hours combing through Carter Industries' records, connecting the dots between Nathan's manipulations and his true intentions. The proof was damning. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Margaret, Nathan's mother, a vision of elegance in her navy blue dress. She beamed at Olivia, her eyes misty with emotion. "You look breathtaking, darling," she said, adjusting the pearl necklace she had gifted Olivia just days ago. "Nathan is a lucky man." Olivia forced a smile, the weight of what she was about to do pressing against her chest. "Thank you, Margaret. I hope he knows that." She did not miss the way Margaret's expression faltered, the unspoken words hanging between them. Perhaps deep down, the woman had always known her son wasn't as perfect as he pretended to be. The final countdown had begun. As the bridal party made their way to the grand cathedral, Olivia's grip tightened around the envelope hidden in the folds of her gown. It contained everything: emails, financial records, text messages Nathan had foolishly never bothered to delete. Each page was a testament to his greed, his lies, his betrayal. The very foundation of his life was about to crumble, and he had no idea. The ceremony was set to begin in minutes. Guests filled the pews, their whispers of admiration echoing through the cathedral. At the end of the aisle, Nathan stood waiting, dressed in an impeccable black tuxedo, a mask of confidence on his face. He looked every bit the devoted fiancé, completely unaware that the woman walking toward him was no longer his pawn. As Olivia took her first steps down the aisle, the weight of the moment settled in. The guests stood, eyes filled with admiration, some wiping away tears at the beauty of the scene. Nathan's smile widened as she approached, but then she stopped. A collective murmur spread through the crowd as Olivia turned, not toward the priest, not toward Nathan, but toward the audience. "There's something I need to say before we begin." Olivia's voice was steady, carrying through the cathedral with an authority she had never felt before. Nathan frowned, shifting uncomfortably. "Olivia, what are you doing?" he whispered, his voice low but sharp. She ignored him. Instead, she reached into her gown, retrieving the envelope, and held it up for everyone to see. "This," she continued, her voice unwavering, "is the truth about the man standing beside me, the man I was about to marry." The silence was deafening. Even the priest seemed frozen in place. Nathan's confidence cracked. "Olivia, stop this!" But she didn't. With deliberate slowness, she opened the envelope and let the documents fall, scattering across the marble floor like a damning snowfall. The first few rows of guests leaned forward, eyes scanning the pages, gasps rippling through the room. Emails detailing Nathan's plans to take over Carter Industries. Financial records showing misappropriated funds. Messages to a mistress, one who happened to be sitting in the crowd, her face now drained of color. Margaret's hands flew to her mouth, while Charlotte, Nathan's sister, stared at him in horror. "I loved you," Olivia said, her voice soft but sharp enough to cut through the tension. "I trusted you, and you saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone, a temporary investment." Nathan's face turned ashen. "This isn't what you think," he stammered, his voice no longer carrying its usual charm. "We can talk about this in private. I think everyone deserves to hear the truth." The doors at the back of the cathedral swung open, and Olivia watched as two men in dark suits entered, representatives from the board of Carter Industries. They had received the evidence hours ago, and now they were here to deliver their verdict. Nathan's fate was sealed. As the weight of realization settled over him, he took a step toward Olivia, desperation creeping into his eyes. "Please, don't do this." She tilted her head, her gaze unwavering. "I'm not doing anything, Nathan. You did this to yourself." With that, Olivia turned and walked away, leaving him to face the wreckage of the life he had built on lies. As she stepped out into the sunlight, the first breath of freedom filled her lungs. The wedding had ended before it had begun, but this was the real beginning. The beginning of something far greater than she had ever imagined. The silence inside the grand cathedral had been suffocating. Olivia had walked away without looking back, the weight of her revelation still hanging in the air. Outside, the sun blazed down on her like a spotlight, illuminating the first steps of her new life, one without Nathan Montgomery. The moment she stepped onto the stone steps leading out of the cathedral, the doors behind her burst open, and a flurry of voices followed. The guests spilled out, their faces ranging from stunned disbelief to barely concealed curiosity. Murmurs swirled in the air like a brewing storm. Did that really just happen? She exposed him in front of everyone. What's going to happen to Nathan now? A deep breath steadied Olivia's shaking hands. She had prepared for this moment, had envisioned it 1,000 times, but nothing compared to the reality of it. She felt both liberated and exhausted, as if the weight of years of deception had finally been lifted from her shoulders. A sudden sharp voice cut through the whispers. "Olivia." She turned slowly, unsurprised to find Margaret Montgomery pushing her way through the crowd, her once composed expression twisted into something unreadable, shock, betrayal, perhaps even a flicker of regret. "How could you do this?" Margaret demanded, her voice tight with emotion. Olivia met her gaze head-on. "How could I not?" Margaret inhaled sharply, clutching the pearls around her neck as if they could anchor her. "He's my son," she whispered, her voice trembling now. "You've ruined his life." "No, Margaret," Olivia said, her voice softer but unwavering. "Nathan ruined his own life. I just made sure everyone knew the truth." Margaret's lips pressed into a thin line, and for the briefest moment Olivia thought she might lash out. But then she turned away, shoulders stiff, retreating back toward the cathedral where her son's empire was crumbling. From inside, a new commotion erupted. Security had arrived. Olivia caught sight of Nathan, his once pristine tuxedo now disheveled, his face a mask of disbelief and rage. He was arguing, no, pleading, with the Carter Industries representatives, but they were unmoved. "It's over, Montgomery," one of them said. "Your father's legacy ends today." The weight of their words hit Nathan like a physical blow. His entire life had been built upon the Montgomery name, on the foundation of power, privilege, and carefully curated control. Now it was all slipping through his fingers. Olivia didn't need to watch the rest unfold. She already knew the outcome. Instead, she descended the stairs, her heart pounding as she approached the black car waiting for her at the curb. The driver, a trusted confidant of her father's old business partner, nodded at her in quiet acknowledgement. She slid into the back seat just as her phone buzzed in her purse. "Private investigator." "Everything is in motion. Carter Industries has officially removed him. The SEC has been notified. His accounts are frozen." A shiver ran through her. It was truly done. As the car pulled away, She allowed herself one last glance at the cathedral in the rearview mirror. Nathan was still there, still fighting a battle he had already lost. His once loyal business associates were turning away from him. His family stood in stunned silence. And Rebecca, the woman he had planned his future with, was nowhere to be seen. It was poetic. The drive back to the penthouse was quiet, save for the rhythmic tapping of Olivia's fingers against her knee. When she finally arrived, she kicked off her heels and walked straight to the terrace overlooking the city skyline. This place, this life, had once been something she thought she'd share with Nathan. Now, it was all hers. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Claire Montgomery. I don't know what to say. I don't know if I should be angry or grateful, but I know one thing. You were right. Olivia exhaled slowly. Claire had been the one she worried about most. Unlike her mother, Claire had never turned a blind eye to her brother's shortcomings, but she had also never been forced to confront them head-on. Until now. She typed out a simple response. I hope one day you'll understand why I had to do it. Minutes passed, then a reply. I already do. A small, sad smile tugged at Olivia's lips. Outside, the city buzzed with life, but inside, she felt an eerie calm settle over her. For the first time in years, there were no secrets weighing her down, no lies to uphold. Nathan was gone. His empire had crumbled. And she was finally free. The morning after what should have been her wedding day, Olivia woke to a city that had already begun whispering about the fall of Nathan Montgomery. News outlets had picked up the story. Socialite exposes CEO groom at the altar in shocking betrayal, complete with blurred security footage from the church showing Nathan's stunned expression as she walked away. Every detail was being dissected by the media, from the offshore accounts she'd exposed to the freezing of his assets and the impending legal investigations into his company. Still, Olivia didn't feel victorious. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window in her penthouse, she held a steaming cup of coffee, staring out at the morning skyline. The city looked the same as it had yesterday, and yet her world had shifted completely. The weight of the deception, the lies, the years spent planning a life with someone who never truly saw her, had vanished. But in its place was something else, an eerie stillness. A notification buzzed on her phone. Claire Montgomery. Can we meet? I need to talk. Olivia hesitated. Claire had been silent after the church. She hadn't run after her like Margaret hadn't called, hadn't even sent a single message after their last text. Olivia knew Claire was struggling. Nathan was her brother after all. And while she had never been blind to his flaws, she had never been forced to see them so clearly either. A second message appeared before she could respond. Please, Olivia, I need answers. With a quiet sigh, Olivia typed out a reply. Fine. The coffee shop on 5th. 1 hour. When Olivia arrived, Claire was already there, sitting at a back table, her hands curled tightly around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. She looked different. Her usual composed, elegant demeanor had been replaced with something raw, something close to grief. You really did it, Claire said as Olivia slid into the seat across from her. Yeah, Olivia answered. I did. Claire exhaled, shaking her head. I knew Nathan had secrets. I knew he wasn't perfect, but... She trailed off, her voice laced with something Olivia couldn't quite identify. Anger, betrayal, shame. You didn't tell me. I couldn't, Olivia admitted. Not until I was sure. Not until I had enough to stop him for good. Claire looked at her then, eyes searching. And? Did you? Olivia hesitated. Nathan had been removed from his company. His finances were in ruin. The SEC was circling like sharks, ready to pull apart everything he'd built to uncover the full extent of his fraud. But was he stopped? He's out, Claire continued before Olivia could answer. He's not in jail. He's not completely ruined. He still has people loyal to him, people who will try to salvage what's left of Montgomery Enterprises. Olivia frowned. She had expected Nathan to fight back, but she had underestimated just how quickly he would try to regain control. Who's helping him? Claire shook her head. I don't know, but my mother's working to protect him. She's already speaking to lawyers, trying to spin this as a misunderstanding. Olivia clenched her jaw. Of course, Margaret would protect him, even now, even after everything. Claire leaned in, lowering her voice. There's something else. I overheard her talking to someone late last night. She said, we can fix this, but Olivia needs to be handled first. A slow chill crawled down Olivia's spine. Handled? She repeated, voice tight. Claire nodded. I don't know what it means, but I wouldn't underestimate her. Olivia leaned back in her chair, her mind already racing. Margaret had been humiliated just as much as Nathan had. If she was plotting something, it wouldn't just be damage control. It would be retaliation. Be careful, Olivia, Claire said softly. You might have taken Nathan down, but my mother, she doesn't lose easily. Olivia met her gaze, understanding the warning in her eyes. Neither do I. That night, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. She sat at her desk, sifting through more files, looking for anything, any last piece of evidence that could seal Nathan's fate before he had a chance to strike back. Her laptop screen glowed in the dimly lit room, displaying a spreadsheet of transactions, messages between Nathan and his inner circle, whispers of more corruption buried beneath layers of fake investments. Her phone rang, cutting through the silence. It was her private investigator. I was right, he said without preamble. Nathan's already making moves. He's been in contact with a firm overseas, trying to shift what's left of his assets out of reach before the SEC gets to them. Olivia's grip tightened on her phone. And Margaret? There was a pause. She's meeting with a crisis management team tomorrow. Rumor is, they're planning to paint you as an unstable, vengeful woman who fabricated the evidence to ruin Nathan because of a broken heart. Olivia exhaled sharply. So that was their play. They want to turn this on me, she said aloud, more to herself than to him. Make me look like the villain. That's exactly what they want, he confirmed. They're trying to make this disappear before it destroys them completely. For a moment, Olivia closed her eyes, pressing her fingers to her temple. She had known this fight wasn't over, but she hadn't expected them to go this far this fast. She straightened, her resolve hardening. If they wanted a war, they would get one. Keep digging, she ordered. Find out who Nathan is working with, what Margaret is planning, everything. I want them backed into a corner before they even realize they're in a fight. Got it, the investigator said. But, Olivia, she paused. What? Be careful, he warned. They're desperate now, and desperate people do dangerous things. Olivia hung up, her heartbeat steady but her mind racing. She had won the first battle. But the war? It had only just begun. The morning after Olivia received the warning from her private investigator, the first headline dropped. Billionaire heiress Olivia Carter fabricates scandal in bitter revenge plot against ex-fiancé Nathan Montgomery. Olivia stared at the glowing screen of her phone, reading the article with detached disbelief. The carefully curated smear campaign had begun. Every detail had been twisted. Her actions painted as a desperate, vindictive attempt to ruin a man who had kindly overlooked her supposed emotional instability. There were even whispers of fabricated mental health struggles, claims that she had a history of erratic behavior. Margaret moved fast, her hands clenched into fists. She had expected this, had even anticipated they would try to discredit her. But seeing it in black and white, the blatant lies, the audacity of their counterattack still made her stomach churn. A knock on the door made her snap out of it. Sarah, her investigator, stepped inside, holding a folder in one hand and her phone in the other. "You've seen it," Sarah said without preamble, setting the folder down. Olivia nodded. "How bad is it?" "Margaret's using every connection she has. She's got paid influencers pushing the scorned woman narrative, hired PR firms flooding social media with sympathy for Nathan. Even some of his former colleagues are speaking out, saying you had a history of jealousy and manipulation." Olivia inhaled deeply, willing herself to stay calm. "And Nathan?" Sarah smirked. "Oh, he's playing it up. He gave an interview this morning. Fake humility, the whole I still care about Olivia, but she's clearly unwell act. They're trying to force you into silence by making you look unhinged." Olivia exhaled slowly. "This is what they think will stop me?" "Well," she said, forcing herself to smile, "then I guess it's time to remind them exactly who they're dealing with." By noon, Olivia's counterattack was in full motion. She sat in her office, her laptop open as she orchestrated a press release of her own. Truth doesn't require a PR campaign. The statement was short, powerful, and direct. Unlike Nathan and Margaret, she wasn't going to drown people in lies and misdirection. She didn't need to. She attached every piece of evidence she had: the offshore accounts, the fraudulent transactions, emails between Nathan and his associates discussing their illegal financial maneuvers, and, the most damning of all, recordings. In one, Nathan could be heard laughing about stringing Olivia along until he secured her family's investments. In another, a conversation between him and Margaret revealed their plan to quietly transfer stolen money before authorities could freeze the accounts. Olivia didn't need to argue her innocence. The facts spoke for themselves. By the time her statement hit the internet, the reaction was instant. The same journalists who had written about Nathan's fabricated innocence were now backpedaling, scrambling to cover the real scandal. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #JusticeForOlivia and #ExposeNathanMontgomery trended worldwide. Within hours, Nathan and Margaret's well-crafted counter-narrative collapsed. But Olivia knew it wasn't over yet. That night, she received an anonymous message. "This isn't finished. Walk away before you regret it." She stared at the words, her grip tightening around her phone. A second later, another text followed. A photo, her penthouse, taken from across the street. Someone was watching her. Olivia's pulse quickened, but she forced herself to remain calm. This was exactly the type of intimidation Margaret specialized in. She called Sarah immediately. "We need to increase security, now." "Already on it," Sarah responded. "I have a team checking all surveillance footage. Whoever sent that message, we'll find them." Olivia exhaled. "And Nathan?" "He's in full panic mode. After your statement dropped, investors started pulling out of Montgomery Enterprises. The SEC is investigating deeper now, and I heard whispers that some of his board members are looking to cut him loose before it gets worse." "Good," Olivia said. "Let them turn on him." She had no intention of walking away. If Nathan and Margaret thought they could intimidate her into silence, they had severely underestimated her. The war had escalated, and Olivia was ready to end it. The next morning, Olivia awoke to a barrage of missed calls and urgent messages. Something had shifted overnight. The public was turning against Nathan faster than she had anticipated. Sarah's name flashed on her phone. Olivia answered immediately. "Tell me something good," she said, rubbing her temples. "Oh, I have plenty," Sarah responded, her voice laced with satisfaction. "First off, Nathan tried to hold an emergency board meeting this morning to clarify the situation. Problem is, half the board didn't show up. The other half, they were already meeting, without him. Olivia sat up, fully alert now. They're cutting him loose. More than that, Sarah continued, they're pushing for his complete removal from Montgomery Enterprises. Apparently, your evidence scared them. They don't want to go down with him. A slow, satisfied smile spread across Olivia's lips. She had spent years carefully navigating corporate politics, watching men like Nathan wield power recklessly. Now she was the one pulling the strings. But wait, there's more, Sarah said. Margaret was spotted at her private club last night, drunk, furious. One of my contacts overheard her on the phone, screaming about how Nathan was a liability and how she should have never trusted him to handle the finances. Olivia's heart pounded. She's going to turn on him. She already has, Sarah confirmed. I just got word. Margaret quietly reached out to the SEC this morning. She's offering full cooperation in exchange for immunity. Olivia leaned back in her chair, exhaling deeply. Margaret had been Nathan's greatest shield, his mentor, his protector. But in the end, she was just another ruthless opportunist, and when the ship started sinking, she did what she always did, saved herself. This was it. Nathan was done. By noon, the news had broken. Montgomery Enterprises in turmoil. CEO Nathan Montgomery under federal investigation, facing potential indictment. Sources confirm SEC working with key witness. Major arrests expected. Social media erupted. The same influencers who had painted Olivia as bitter and unstable were now frantically deleting their posts and backpedaling. Investors scrambled to distance themselves from Nathan, and his empire was crumbling in real time. But Olivia wasn't done. Nathan had spent years underestimating her, treating her like a pawn in his grand game. He had used her trust, her name, and her wealth to elevate himself, never expecting that she would be the one to take it all away. She wasn't just going to destroy his career. She was going to watch him burn. That evening, Olivia arrived at Montgomery Enterprises headquarters, the building Nathan had once proudly paraded her through, introducing her to executives as his future wife, the perfect partner. How poetic, then, that she would be the one to deliver his final blow. Sarah met her at the private entrance. Security is tight, but they know you're coming. The board wants to hear from you directly. Olivia nodded and stepped into the elevator, her heels clicking against the marble floor. As she ascended to the executive suite, a deep calm settled over her. She had spent years preparing for this moment, whether she knew it or not. The boardroom was silent when she entered. Every seat was filled, except for Nathan's. His nameplate sat untouched at the head of the table. The chairman, an older man who had known Nathan's father, cleared his throat. Miss Carter, thank you for joining us. We understand you have insight to provide on recent events. Olivia placed a thick folder on the table. Gentlemen, I don't need to tell you that Nathan Montgomery is finished. She let her words hang in the air. No one disagreed. You all have two choices, she continued. You can go down with him, or you can salvage what's left of Montgomery Enterprises by ensuring that he is completely removed from any position of power. A murmur spread through the room. One board member, a woman Olivia respected, spoke first. The SEC will be pressing charges. We need a restructuring plan immediately. Another board member hesitated. Nathan still holds a significant amount of shares. Not anymore, Olivia interrupted smoothly. She slid a document across the table. As of this morning, Nathan's assets have been completely frozen. His shares will be liquidated to cover pending legal fees and federal penalties. His position in the company is already compromised. The room went silent. Then Slowly, the chairman nodded. "It seems, Miss Carter, that you've already decided the future of this company." "I have," Olivia confirmed, "and the only future that exists is without Nathan Montgomery." The vote was called. Unanimous. Nathan was officially removed from Montgomery Enterprises. An hour later, Olivia stepped outside into the cool night air. The city stretched before her, lights twinkling like stars. She inhaled deeply, letting the crisp wind fill her lungs. Sarah joined her, arms crossed. "You did it." Olivia smiled. "We did it." Her phone buzzed, a blocked number. She answered. Silence. Then, a voice she hadn't heard in weeks. "Olivia?" Nathan's voice was hoarse, raw. "You set me up," he whispered. You destroyed everything." She let out a soft laugh. "No, Nathan. You did that all by yourself. I just made sure the world finally saw it." A heavy silence stretched between them. Then, in a voice laced with something unfamiliar, defeat, he asked, "Why?" Her smile widened. "Because," she said, "you were never meant to win." She hung up. Above her, the stars shimmered, and for the first time in a long, long time, Olivia Carter felt free. The lesson learned, a story of power, betrayal, and justice. Olivia's story is a powerful reminder that betrayal isn't just about broken hearts. It's about broken trust, broken dreams, and the underestimation of one's true strength. Nathan believed he could manipulate, deceive, and control Olivia, just as he had done to countless others before her. But in the end, it wasn't his charm or his lies that determined his fate. It was Olivia's unwavering resilience and intelligence that brought him down. This story isn't just about revenge, it's about justice. It's about showing that no matter how powerful someone seems, the truth always finds its way to the surface. Nathan thrived in a world where deception ruled, but Olivia proved that knowledge, patience, and playing the long game would always win in the end. It wasn't enough for her to simply expose his betrayal. She ensured that every part of his corruption was laid bare for the world to see. And in doing so, she reclaimed not only her power, but her freedom. So what's the lesson here? Never underestimate the power of a woman scorned, especially one who is smarter than you. Betrayal may feel like an end, but sometimes it's just the beginning of a much greater victory. If you want to hear more thrilling stories of betrayal, karma, and justice served ice cold, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Men's Cheating Story. What would you have done in Olivia's situation? Let us know in the comments below, and stay tuned for the next explosive story. Because in the world of cheating and deception, karma is always watching, on fire.